Welcome to Mindful Moments. Nourish your mind on the go. This video uses AI narration to present our original book analysis. Today, we're diving into Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence, why it can matter more than IQ.
Oh, this is a good one.
Get ready to uncover why nurturing your emotional intelligence is crucial for success in, all aspects of life, from personal relationships to career achievements.
You know, when I first read this book, it completely changed how I view success and even intelligence itself. Goleman makes a compelling argument that IQ, while important, isn't the only factor.
Okay, so let's unpack that. What exactly is he getting at with this idea of emotional intelligence?
Yeah, what is emotional intelligence?
I mean, we usually think of intelligence as being book smart, right?
Right. But Goleman expands that definition. He argues that emotional intelligence, which encompasses things like self-awareness, empathy, and the ability to manage our emotions effectively, is just as critical.
So it's not just about being smart, it's about being smart about our feelings.
Exactly. And he illustrates this with some powerful examples.
Oh, I love when authors use examples.
He contrasts a heartwarming story about a bus driver. This bus driver has this infectious positivity, and it transforms a bus full of grumpy commuters. And then he contrasts this with some real-world examples.
So we see both sides.
Yeah, things like school shootings stemming from a perceived disrespect.
Okay, so he's showing us the range of possible outcomes when it comes to handling or mishandling our emotions.
Precisely. And to understand this better, we need to look at the science behind emotions. Goleman takes us on a fascinating journey through the brain, specifically the amygdala, which is our emotional control center. What's fascinating is how the amygdala can trigger these rapid-fire reactions like fear or anger, often bypassing rational thought altogether. He calls this emotional high-disking.
Oh, I've heard of this. So it's like our emotions are in the driver's seat and our rational mind is stuck in the back.
You got it. It's like a fight-or-flight response on overdrive. Think about those times you've reacted impulsively.
All the time.
Maybe said something you regretted later. That's often the amygdala taking over.
But wait, doesn't that mean we're just slaves to our emotions? Is there any hope for us?
There is. Luckily, our brains also have a built-in emotional manager, the prefrontal cortex.
Oh, okay.
This part of the brain works in concert with the amygdala to regulate our emotional responses. It's like having a wise counselor. They step in and say, hold on, let's think this through before we do something we'll regret.
Okay, so we've got this incredible interplay happening in our brains between the emotional center and the rational center. And that brings us back to emotional intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. How do these different parts of the brain work together to make us more emotionally intelligent?
Well, Goleman breaks emotional intelligence down into 5 core components.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let's start with self-awareness, the foundation of it all. It's the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions as you're experiencing them. He uses the example of alexithymia, which is a condition where people struggle to identify and articulate their feelings. Imagine feeling a whirlwind of emotions, but not being able to pinpoint what they are or why you're feeling them.
That sounds incredibly frustrating, like being lost in your own emotional landscape.
Yeah.
And I guess without that self-awareness, it becomes pretty difficult to manage those emotions effectively.
Absolutely. That's where self-regulation comes in, the next component of emotional intelligence. This is all about managing and controlling your emotions, especially in challenging situations. It's about choosing how you respond rather than letting your emotions run the show.
So it's about taking that pause, letting that prefrontal cortex kick in, and making a conscious choice about how to react.
Exactly. And Goleman delves into some practical strategies for self-regulation, focusing specifically on managing anger and anxiety. For example, he talks about challenging those anger-inducing thoughts, taking time to cool down, and using relaxation techniques to calm the physiological response.
You know, I've definitely noticed how in the heat of the moment, my thoughts can really spiral and make things worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's like those thoughts are throwing fuel on the fire. So it seems like recognizing those thought patterns and challenging them is a huge part of self-regulation.
You're spot on. And it's the same with anxiety. He talks about how anxiety can undermine intellectual performance and offer some helpful techniques for managing it, like challenging worry-inducing thoughts and incorporating relaxation practices into your routine.
So it's like having a toolkit for navigating those inevitable emotional ups and downs.
Precisely. It's about being equipped to handle the full spectrum of human emotions. And that takes us to the next component of emotional intelligence, motivation.
Okay, let's talk about motivation. What does Goleman say about that?
Well, he highlights the power of hope and optimism in fueling both motivation and resilience. He defines hope as believing in your ability to achieve your goals, which then creates a sense of resourcefulness and perseverance.
So it's not just about having a positive outlook, but about believing in yourself and your capacity to achieve what you set out to do.
Right. And he uses the example of Olympic swimmer Matt Biondi, who didn't let early disappointments derail his Olympic journey. Instead, he used them as fuel to keep striving.
I love that. It's such a great example of how our mindset, that internal dialogue, can really make all the difference.
Absolutely. And Goleman backs this up with research by Martin Seligman, who demonstrated the positive impact of optimism on sales performance.
So it's not just about positive thinking. It's about having a belief in your own capabilities and a willingness to keep going even when things get tough. That resilience is a key aspect of emotional intelligence. Now, let's talk about something that might seem unexpected. Flow state and peak performance.
Goleman introduces flow as a state of complete absorption and enjoyment in an activity. Think of it as being in the zone, where you're so engrossed in what you're doing that time seems to fly by.
That's interesting. But how does that connect to emotional intelligence?
He explains that managing anxieties and negative emotions allows for better focus and engagement, paving the way for flow. It's like clearing the mental clutter so you can be fully present in the moment.
Makes sense.
And he shares anecdotes from the book about individuals experiencing flow, emphasizing the feeling of effortless action, heightened focus, and intrinsic reward. It's about finding that sweet spot where your skills are perfectly matched to the challenge at hand, leading to a sense of effortless mastery.
I'm starting to see how all of these pieces fit together. By managing distractions and cultivating a positive mindset, we create the conditions for flow to occur. That's incredibly empowering. It means we have more control over our experiences, even those peak performance moments, than we might realize.
Exactly. And it all ties back to the interplay between our emotions and our actions.
This is all so fascinating. But let's pause here for now. When we come back, we'll continue our deep dive into emotional intelligence, exploring the vital role of empathy and social intelligence.
Welcome back. We're diving back into Daniel Goleman's emotional intelligence.
All right, let's go. Where were we?
Now imagine you're in a crowded room, you're surrounded by people, but you don't just see them. You can sense their moods. You pick up on those subtle cues that tell you how they're feeling. That, in essence, is empathy.
Yeah, empathy, the cornerstone of human connection.
Exactly. And Goleman emphasizes how critical empathy is for building strong relationships. He points out that its absence is often a hallmark of individuals who exhibit antisocial behaviors.
So it's not just about being nice. It's about having a deeper understanding of how others are feeling and responding in a way that shows you care. But is empathy something we're born with, or can we actually learn to be more empathetic?
That's a great question. Goleman highlights the fascinating role of nonverbal communication in developing empathy. He presents the work of Robert Rosenthal, who developed the PONS test.
The PONS test.
It uses videotapes to assess people's ability to read emotional cues, things like tone of voice, facial expressions, and gestures.
It's like learning a new language, the language of emotions. We're constantly sending and receiving these subtle signals, even if we're not consciously aware of it. And I guess being able to decipher those signals is a key part of becoming more empathetic.
You're absolutely right. And those early experiences, particularly the attunement between infants and their caregivers, play a huge role in shaping our empathic abilities. Goleman describes this attunement as a parent's ability to not just mimic their baby's behavior, but to truly sense and respond to their emotional state. It's that deep, intuitive connection.
That makes me think about how important it is to create a safe and emotionally responsive environment for children. If they don't have those early experiences of being truly seen and understood, could that hinder their ability to develop empathy later on?
It's a real concern. Goleman points out that children who experience emotional neglect or abuse often struggle to develop empathy later in life. It's like their emotional radar gets distorted, making it harder for them to connect with others on a deeper level.
But that also means there's hope, right? If those early experiences can shape our capacity for empathy, then positive emotional experiences like supportive relationships and opportunities to practice empathy can actually strengthen those neural pathways in the brain.
Exactly. It's a powerful message. It means that empathy is not fixed. It's something we can nurture and develop throughout our lives.
That's really encouraging. It gives us a sense of agency.
Yeah.
The power to shape not only our own emotional intelligence, but also that of others. Now, let's move on to social intelligence. Is that just another way of saying people skills?
It's related, but Goleman takes it a step further. He explains that social intelligence builds upon all those other emotional intelligences we've been discussing, allowing us to navigate social situations effectively, build rapport, influence others, and resolve conflicts peacefully.
So it's like having this finely tuned social radar that helps us understand the nuances of social dynamics and respond in a way that fosters positive connections.
Precisely. And he illustrates this beautifully with the story of Terry Dobson, an American studying Aikido in Japan.
Oh, wow.
He found himself on a crowded train with a drunk and belligerent man terrorizing the other passengers. Instead of confronting the man with force, Dobson used subtle emotional cues and skillful communication to de-escalate the situation, eventually calming the man down.
Wow, that's a remarkable example of emotional intelligence in action. He didn't rely on physical strength or aggression. He tapped into his empathy and social intelligence to create a peaceful resolution. It's a powerful reminder that we have more options than we might realize in those challenging situations. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can pause, assess the situation, and choose a more skillful response.
That's the essence of emotional intelligence. It empowers us to respond rather than react.
This deep dive has been incredible. We've covered so much ground, from the science of emotions to the core components of emotional intelligence. I'm curious, what stands out to you as the most impactful takeaway?
For me, it's the realization that emotional intelligence is not a fixed trait, but a set of skills we can learn and develop throughout life. Goleman gives us practical strategies and real-world examples that show how we can become more self-aware, manage our emotions effectively, and build stronger, more meaningful relationships. And that's a truly empowering message.
I completely agree. It's like he's giving us a roadmap for personal growth and fulfillment. And it's never too late to start cultivating those emotional intelligence muscles.
And Goleman doesn't just stop at defining emotional intelligence.
Right.
He explores its practical applications.
I was going to say, where do we take this?
Across different areas of life.
Right.
For instance, he dives into the dynamics of intimate relationships and how emotional intelligence can make or break a marriage.
Huge.
He talks about how negative thought patterns and emotional hijackings can lead to destructive communication patterns.
Oh, interesting.
You know, things like criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling.
It's like those negative cycles we sometimes get stuck in, where each person's reaction just fuels the other person's anger or hurt.
Exactly.
It can feel impossible to break free.
But Goleman doesn't just point out the problems.
Right.
He offers solutions.
Give us the solution.
He talks about the importance of non-defensive listening and speaking, learning to repair those inevitable ruptures in communication, and fostering a more positive emotional climate in the relationship.
So it's about shifting from a reactive mode to a more mindful and intentional way of interacting with our partners.
Precisely.
I like that.
And he also emphasizes the importance of understanding that men and women sometimes express and experience emotions differently.
Oh, that's a good point.
For example, he discusses how girls are often socialized to be more attuned to emotions and more expressive, while boys are often encouraged to suppress certain emotions, particularly those associated with vulnerability.
It's almost like we're given different emotional rule books growing up, and that can lead to a lot of misunderstandings and frustration in relationships.
Right.
But if we can start to recognize those differences and how they impact communication, we can bridge that gap and create a more understanding and empathetic dynamic.
Absolutely. And Goleman then shifts his focus to the workplace,
Okay.
exploring how emotional intelligence impacts teamwork, leadership, and organizational culture.
So he takes us to work now.
He shares some pretty eye-opening examples of how leaders who lack emotional intelligence can create toxic work environments,
Oh, yeah?
leading to decreased productivity, high turnover, and even unethical behavior.
That makes sense.
If a leader is constantly reacting emotionally, making impulsive decisions, or failing to understand the needs and perspectives of their team, that's going to create a lot of tension and dysfunction.
For sure.
On the flip side, he highlights how emotionally intelligent leaders can inspire and motivate their teams, foster collaboration and innovation, and create a much more positive and productive work culture.
Much better.
It's about recognizing that emotions matter even in the workplace.
So it's not about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist, but about understanding and channeling them in a way that benefits both the individual and the organization as a whole.
You got it. And he goes beyond just leadership. discussing the importance of emotional intelligence for anyone who wants to thrive in a professional setting.
Okay.
It's about building strong relationships, navigating office politics effectively, and communicating your ideas persuasively.
It sounds like emotional intelligence is really the key to success in all aspects of life.
Yeah.
It's not just about being book smart. It's about understanding ourselves and others on a deeper level and using that knowledge to navigate the complexities of human interaction.
Exactly. And Goleman even explores the fascinating link between our minds and bodies,
Our minds and bodies.
highlighting how our emotions can impact our physical health.
That's interesting.
He discusses the groundbreaking field of psychoneuroimmunology, which examines the connections between our thoughts, emotions, and immune system.
That's fascinating. I've always suspected that there was a strong connection between our emotional state and our physical well-being. But is there actual scientific evidence to support that?
There is. Research shows that chronic stress, anxiety, and depression can actually suppress our immune function,
Really?
making us more susceptible to illness. On the other hand, positive emotions like joy, hope, and optimism can boost our immune system and enhance our overall well-being.
So it really is all connected. Like
Yeah.
our emotions are sending signals to our bodies, either strengthening or weakening our defenses.
Yeah.
So taking care of our emotional health is just as important as taking care of our physical health.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And Goleman also delves into the crucial role of emotional intelligence in parenting and child development.
That's a big one.
He talks about the impact of different parenting styles on children's emotional and social development.
I'm really curious to hear more about this. I
Yeah.
mean, as parents, we all want to raise happy, healthy, and well-adjusted children. How can understanding emotional intelligence help us do that?
Well, he highlights the importance of parents serving as emotional coaches,
Emotional coaches.
helping children understand and manage their feelings, develop empathy, and build strong relationships. It's about creating an emotionally safe and nurturing environment where children feel supported and empowered to express their emotions in a healthy way.
So important.
Instead of just telling kids to stop crying or calm down, we need to help them understand what they're feeling and give them the tools to cope with those emotions effectively.
Right. Give them the tools.
Exactly. And Goleman doesn't shy away from discussing the challenges that children face today, particularly the rise of aggression, depression, anxiety, and substance abuse. He presents a compelling case for the importance of early intervention and prevention programs that focus on building emotional and social skills.
So it's not just about reacting to problems once they arise, but about equipping children with the emotional intelligence skills they need to navigate life challenges and thrive.
Right.
It's a powerful message.
It is. And he advocates for emotional literacy programs in schools, teaching children the fundamentals of emotional intelligence as part of their regular curriculum.
Oh, I love that.
He believes that by giving children these essential skills, we can empower them to create a brighter future for themselves and for the world.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey. We've explored the science of emotions, delved into the core components of emotional intelligence, and seen how understanding and managing our emotions can lead to greater success in personal relationships, professional endeavors, and overall well-being.
It really can.
It's amazing to think that by understanding and harnessing these emotional skills, we can actually improve our relationships, our work performance, and even our physical health.
You can.
If you want to learn more about emotional intelligence, we highly recommend checking out Daniel Goleman's book,
Yes, read the book.
Emotional Intelligence: Why It Can Matter More Than IQ.
It's a classic.
It's an incredible resource filled with fascinating insights and practical strategies.
Yeah.
You can purchase the book via the link provided in the description.
Yeah.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more mind-nourishing content.
And like the video.
Until next time, keep those minds mindful